Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Unpacking Organizations, where we discuss our passion topics. I'm here with Shradha. Shradha,
Hello,
there's a rare
everybody.
thing's happened. The sun has started to shine in London. It's 31
Oh,
degrees Celsius. So a bizarre thing. So it's the one day of the year. So yeah, life is good here in London. How are you?
I'm doing very well, and too bad that I'm not in London when that's happening. So I hope
It's actually a
I
nightmare
get
because
this.
no one has air conditioning. So everyone complains it's too hot. And then the trains stop working because it's too hot for the trains, and the whole country just turns to a
Maybe
standstill.
it
But
is a true, like a snow day, what we have here in the Northeast. You have a summer day, a true
yeah,
holiday for everybody.
Unpacking Organizations, the Practitioners Podcast. Sponsored by Orgvue.
I'm really happy and full of sunshine because my friend Jade is here. So welcome, Jade. Welcome to our episode.
Thank
Um,
you.
Jade and I know since past 4 or 5 years now, and Orgvue was the matchmaker who got us connected because we were trying to do similar stuff in two different parts of of Americas. Jade is based out of Vancouver, and she was trying to really put in very solid approach around workforce planning and OP&A function in Lululemon, where she still works. So Jade, your Director of Workforce Planning for Lululemon. Thank you for doing this and welcome to our show. And I would pass it on to you, Jade, to just introduce yourself and tell us beyond what you do at Lululemon, something about yourself and who you
Yeah.
are and what got you excited about this topic.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm just delighted to be here, and it's nice and sunny in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. Similar to you, Rupert, air conditioning is a new concept in Vancouver because it's normally not that hot, but we had to cave and get an air conditioning unit for one of our rooms because it is just too hot and we can't handle it here. Our Canadian blood runs
Wow.
cold. Yeah. um, so yeah, I am currently the director of workforce planning at Lululemon. So what that means is I look after all workforce planning for our corporate offices globally. So we call that our store support center, or SSC. We do have labor planning teams that oversee our hourly workforce. So we have a very large retail hourly workforce, distribution center hourly workforce, as well as we call it our guest education center. So think call center. When people, if something's wrong with their order, you can call that 1-888 number and be connected with one of our virtual educators. Um, so a little bit about me. I've been in human resources for about I looked it up last night and I was doing the math, and almost 20 years now. So that's great.
At a certain point, Jade, it's rude to count.
Right? Yeah. Okay.
You
For
don't
a
have to
while.
count
Yeah, I've been
for
Yes.
long enough.
Yeah,
Yeah,
perfect. And I've been at Lulu for 9 years now, which is really
wow.
quite a milestone. I still can't quite believe it. I'll just give a little journey to where I've been to get to Lululemon, and then a bit more about my background at Lulu. So I started my career in recruiting, which I think a lot of it's almost like the gateway to HR is recruiting. I had a marketing degree and marketing background. I'm like, oh, it's like selling jobs, right? And that got me into I started with a consulting group doing executive search, and then moved in-house with actually one of our clients, which was in the oil and gas industry. And that was really kind of the jumping off point into the world of HR, where I was really fortunate to get a lot of incredible experience. Definitely was thrown into the world of HR generalist. So, jack of all trades, master of none, I like to say. At the time, there's heavy labor relations work, which was incredibly interesting. And yeah, from there, I moved into chemical manufacturing, which again, fascinating, interesting. I actually got the opportunity to relocate and be based in one of our chemical plants. So definitely a different vibe from being, corporate head office in the ivory tower, as people like to say, being, at the facility and, putting the hard hat on, going out, meeting with folks. So another incredible experience to just really bolster, I would say, that HR generalist foundation. And then I got the opportunity to move to Lululemon, which I'm from Vancouver originally. So I definitely am one of those folks that grew up with the brand. I remember the very first Lululemon store when I was in high school, not to date myself. And I remember, I think I actually put this in my cover letter when I applied for the job. One of the early pants that we made, they almost look like, scrubs that like hospital workers would wear. They're like thin cotton pants, like straight leg, which was, kind of cool, the skater phase back then. And I had a pair, they were my favorite pair of pants. And
I have to say,
yeah.
Jade, I was saying before, I'm a huge fan. I
Mm,
pretty much wear Lulu every day. It's just so
yeah.
comfortable.
It's so comfortable. And I
Yeah.
mean, I think a lot of people learned that through the pandemic, right?
Yeah.
Where people weren't going into
Yeah.
the office. I think we probably us and Zoom and maybe a couple other small
Yeah.
minority of organizations
So
did
true.
well, actually had, growth during those COVID years because so many people weren't wearing their office attire. They still wanted to look nice, but they didn't want to wear
Yeah.
their pajamas. So,
Right.
where's that balance? So,
Yeah.
yeah, I joined Lululemon as I'd say in our business partnering team. So a business partner, very similar to an HR generalist. Typically, you'd be attached to a function. And I was on the business partnering team for about 5 years. And in that time, I really got the opportunity to support different areas of our business, which was really exciting. The business partner role, it's a very exciting role. You definitely feel like you've got your finger on the pulse. You are that trusted advisor to the executive of that function. So you really get to understand the business. You get to understand the unique challenges that that function may be facing. And I mean, probably frankly, just due to the tenure that I had, I did get to move around to quite a few different areas of the business. So I really got to understand product. Like I had no idea what went into product from, I'd never worked in retail before. So it was really eye-opening and inspiring and exciting to like see our creatives at work and see what they're doing and go, whoa, like I had no idea. And then I was starting to get that itch, maybe some people do, of I'd love to be make a move into a center of excellence or a COE. And there wasn't one that really was jumping out at me. And interestingly enough, I always think the universe works in mysterious ways. I had been doing all of our business partners. We had one person as an expert on org design as we were starting our org design journey, 5-6 years ago, probably 6 years ago now. And then the business partners were the ones who were leading org design. So I got to roll up my sleeves and, Rupert, kudos to you. I read your data-driven org design cover to cover in a very short period of time. I felt like I was in university, just like every night, like highlighter, going through chapters, making notes, going, I'm going to say this in the meeting tomorrow. And it was incredibly helpful. So I didn't know it at the time, but I was really, sharpening my skill set in org design. And then on the flip side, we didn't have a workforce planning capability. Lululemon was going through exponential growth. And so a lot of questions kept coming up. Well, how are we managing this? How many open roles do we have? Who's keeping track of this? So as, a lean business partner team, we all, who can take this side of desk project on? Well, little did I know, this side of desk project actually was the seeds of what would become our workforce planning function. So the role was created of a director of organizational planning and analysis. So at the time, that was docking in org design and workforce planning, which again was creating from nothing, brand new function. And I'll admit, when the role was first posted, I didn't apply because I was so focused on business partnering. And it wasn't until a colleague of mine said, did you see that job? I'm like, yeah. Are you going to apply for it? And I'm like, what, really? And the more I learned, and oh, wait a minute. Oh, actually, yeah, I have been doing that. So it was a really great transition into more back of house. And another colleague, executive within our people and culture team, interviewed me, and she had been a business partner and now was leading COEs. And I asked her, what do you miss? What do you like about business partnering versus COE? And she said, with business partnering, it's almost instant gratification. Problem solve it, problem solve it. You've got your list, tick, 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 tick. The payoffs are multiple, but they might be small in the moment. Whereas COE, big problem. It's going to take you 12 to 18 months to solve it. So it's a grind, but when you do solve it, that payoff is just immense. And I now that I've been through a few of those, I can absolutely agree. So,
That's a
um,
very good way of looking at it. I
mhm.
like it a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And so being in the OP&A role for the past 3.5 years has been incredible. We've spent a lot of time really standing up our governance around org design, landing our org design guidelines, getting that executive alignment, standing up organizational health metrics. So,
Mm-hmm.
leveraging great tools to understand, average spans, depth, why does it matter? Why is compression an issue? And, educating leaders. And we always have new leaders. So the education begins anew.
And then Jade,
So,
do you
yeah,
find that a lot of the role is actually that education piece that you're, because people get so focused on
yeah.
boxes, is a
Yeah.
lot of it helping people to?
I would say so. Yes. And so, again, benefiting from being in a very high growth organization, we are evolving rapidly. So there's always something going on in the org design space. And I would say part of every engagement, there is absolutely that grounding at the beginning to make sure everyone's clear, everyone understands, so that as you're going into the design, um, leaders aren't, as you both know very well, a lot of time folks will come with, here, oh, well, here's the new org chart. So I'm done, right? Like, this is what I want to do. And it's like, okay, well, let's unpack this a little bit. So you can actually, with the education piece, get them away from that to say, okay, let's really focus on the roles, the size, the scope. A big thing that we stand behind is we want big jobs. We want to create big jobs for our people, right? And when you have tons of layers within an organization, how much autonomy, you've got a director role, what decision making authority people actually have, right? So it's definitely been an exciting journey. And then, even more exciting, last fall we declared, the next step in our maturity, which was standing up a new portfolio in people and culture called organizational effectiveness. And in that, so both workforce planning, org design, and then we have a portfolio called Future of Work. So think location strategy, think employee engagement, all of those really, innovative, critical spaces that we're stepping into in people and culture, tying that in. And at that time, that is when my role pivoted to, it's a big scope overseeing those two teams, and so the need really was to break that portfolio into two. And at that time I got to focus more on workforce planning, which is what I've been doing for the past 6 months or so. So that's really my corporate journey. Like I said, I'm from Vancouver, although I did have the opportunity to do my schooling in beautiful New York State at St. Bonaventure University. I think, well, Shradha knows this. Rupert, we haven't met in person yet. And anyone who's watching this, when you do meet me, don't be afraid. I'm 6'2". I'm very tall. I'm very nice. You can be intimidating. Don't worry. So I did go to play collegiate basketball there. And,
Amazing.
basketball, youth sport. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Rupert. Go
No,
ahead.
no, I was just saying amazing. So which, I didn't quite catch, which school did you go to?
St. Bonaventure University. So it's upstate New York, about an hour and 15 minutes south of Buffalo, I would say.
Right.
And basketball, my passion for youth sports, is just really something that's always been near and dear to my heart. So fast forward now, I sit on a board of a nonprofit here in Vancouver called Night Hoops, which is a free basketball program for at-risk youth to get them off the streets, give
Amazing.
them a positive environment to be in. And I've just started coaching basketball again. I have two daughters, so they're both in basketball. I've definitely had some passion reignite in the late past year or so, and now I'm back on the court. I coached some girls on an outdoor court last night in the beautiful sun. So yeah, that's a bit
Fantastic.
about me in a nutshell.
Beautiful. Jade, as you were thinking about the way the new structure is coming and shaping up, what are
Mm.
biggest challenges that a exponential growth company like Lululemon faces, and why workforce and planning becomes so important for those kind of
Mm.
growth companies?
Oh, great question. Lots of challenges, lots of challenges. I'd say at times it almost feels like you're white knuckling and holding on for dear life with how quickly we're growing. I would say, especially in an organization of our size and the growth journey that we've been on, establishing the foundation in workforce planning has been so critical for us because prior to workforce planning existing, I'd say really FP&A, our friends in finance, really bore the brunt of answering all the questions, answering all the people cost questions, and um, what we rewind 9 years ago. I remember those days when we would be sitting down with our finance team, opening up our HRIS system, going, which boxes truly are open boxes, which are funded, which aren't funded, and doing those monthly audits, which it's not super fun, I can tell you. So for us, really what we became quite clear is, questions started coming up and people wanted to understand, how many open roles do we have? How much did we grow last year? Where were those big areas of growth? And we couldn't easily answer that question. We didn't have the data foundation because no one had asked the questions before. So it hadn't really been an issue. It was easy to just, manage. I don't want to say by the seat of our pants, but without someone really critically looking at it, the need wasn't there. So the biggest focus, I'd say in workforce planning, it's been, a 4 year, we're on probably year 4 of our journey. And probably the first 2 years, it really wasn't sexy, but it was establishing that foundation. And we went through a remediation of our HRIS system. And we implemented a lot of critical things. So we implemented position management. Again, people that aren't in HR and they're like, oh, what do you do? And I talk about, oh yeah, like we stood up position management. They're like, what the heck? Okay, is that exciting? It might not sound sexy, but if you're a bit of a nerd, it's actually really cool. So
And
standing up position
foundational.
foundation 100%. So standing up position management, and that's not just the system side of it, it's the governance, it's the who's on point for making sure this data is clean, who's ensuring everyone is educated. And I think that's another big part where we are a global organization, so we do have regional teams, so we need to make sure that they understand the rules of the sandbox for which they can play in. And so setting up the data foundations and really the position management was key. And then I would also say probably one of the more slippery data points, which is tricky, but talent acquisition data. So being able to not only know how many open roles you have that are, true open roles, open recs, not shadow recs where, oh, well, we're just pipelining. Okay, that's fine. But like, what are the true open roles? And being able to set up some sort of reporting. And for us, again, I think this might be common with some companies. What we were looking for was very specific and niche to Lululemon, so we did build a lot of our tools in house. We leveraged Power BI, and we knew what were those standard questions that we were getting asked every month. Okay, great. So now we know what's needed, and starting with what's the question we're trying to answer. Now let's go backwards and let's build up those foundations. Let's figure out what are the right reporting outputs, dashboards, and taking that time, sitting with FP&A. What are your needs? What are you not getting from HR right now that you need to do your job? Again, not the sexiest work, but critically important. And now we're at a place where I can be in a meeting with our executive and they can say, well, they can ask me a question and I have a live dashboard and I can just click on that dashboard and I can tell them. Whereas rewind 4 years ago, Jade, how many open positions do we have? Like, well, can I get back to you in 2 weeks? Because and I'm not exaggerating. That's how long it had taken. So I really can't say more about taking the time. I think right now there's a lot of buzz in the industry about like AI and skills. And don't get me wrong, like there's huge opportunity out there. But if you haven't started with your foundation, if your data is not clean, the insights that you're going to get out of doing that work are really not going to be that helpful to you.
Absolutely. I think it goes back to the same part that yes, skills are important. We have to
Mhm.
utilize AI to do all of this, but it all has to sit on a really strong foundation of clean data, really strong organizational constructs,
Mhm.
so that we understand that what we are tracking, and then we can utilize everybody else's help, including robots, to track it better. So,
Well,
very,
absolutely.
very
Yeah.
important point. Very important
Mhm.
point. So I have a lot of questions. Rupert, do you have any? I don't want to hog all the air.
No, keep on going, Shradha. I'm just enjoying this. Obviously, I've got a million questions as well, and I'm always conscious of
Yes,
time. But you keep on
yes.
going.
Jade, as you are thinking about workforce planning and
Mhm.
having that capability built in the organization,
Mhm.
who are your best friends in that?
Mm.
Because I think a
Yeah.
lot of our listeners say that, okay, I think that it is important, and I think that it needs to be done, but I cannot be a lone star
Yeah.
moving this forward. So, who are the people, stakeholders that you need to connect with in order to do this work in the right way?
Yeah. That's a great question. I would say it always, I mean, as a lot of things do in organizations, starts at the top. So there needs to be a compelling why. A, you could say a compelling business case for your executive to say, hey, actually, we need this. This is important to us. And I mean, I would say maybe just due to the fact that we were growing so quickly, where that came from was, we weren't able to answer questions that we should be able to answer. And that really got a lot of visibility and traction, at those executive levels. Our board is interested in knowing things, and
And
we need
and
to
Right.
and
be able.
Jade, with that,
Yeah,
probably more of a statement than a question, but
yeah,
the ability to answer questions quickly gives the
yes,
ability to make decisions faster and with more confidence. So did
absolutely.
that then help you with your fast growth,
It
enable
did.
you to continue growing quickly without the wheels coming off? It's a bit of a loaded
Yes.
question, but
No, it's a really good call out. Absolutely. And what I would add, just a little like extra angle to consider in that, and this was a bit of a mantra that I had learned early on, actually from a colleague of mine, who's got deep workforce planning experience and background, is data should be actionable, not interesting. And I remember when I first heard that, and I
Oh,
went, well, what do you mean by
like
that?
that.
Well, everything's interesting, right? And you'll meet with leaders and they're like, oh, well, that's really interesting. Can you tell me, so on that team, what was, blah, 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 blah. And great, what are you going to do with that information? Oh, well, nothing, I guess nothing really. Okay, well, I hear that is interesting, and we could spend weeks and months, going down rabbit holes of data, but really needing to pull up and say what's actionable. And so, going back to your point, Rupert, when we think about the executive and them wanting those quick answers, being able to not only answer quickly, but answer the right questions quickly, and being able, and I think this comes with, as you're setting yourself up and establishing yourself as that COE, not only are you building your own confidence, but hopefully you're building your reputation in the business. So there are times where leaders come to me and I say no, very respectfully, but I push back and I say, I hear that you want that analysis, that piece of information, but we're not going to do that today, and here's why. And there's also times where it's that idea of, is the juice worth the squeeze? Again, we can do all the analysis you want, but is it really worth it? This body of work would take us 2 weeks to turn around. And sometimes when I frame it that way, the leaders go, oh, 2 weeks. And I mean, how would they know? They're not in the day to day of it. So they may think that, oh, isn't that just a quick thing? Well, no, it's not
yeah,
actually. And here's why.
yeah.
Um, yeah.
And just going back to the point about creating big jobs,
Mm,
because and leaders come and they say, well, here's the org chart, just do this please, and then your ability to push back and say, well, actually, what is the responsibility? What's in the box is the
mm.
accountabilities and the work. And how have you found doing that in terms of the impact on employee engagement and the impact on maybe even employee churn, like keeping people for longer and in a more motivated way?
Absolutely. I think what comes up for me when, in this space is the idea of, so again, we use RAS, which I know you know very well, Rupert.
Yep.
But so, a lot of organizations are comfortable with RACI. Others may have heard that, responsible, approve,
Yep.
consult, inform when you're, evaluating roles and responsibilities. To RAS, who's responsible, who approves, who supports. Much cleaner, much simpler.
Yeah. I should, sorry to cut across, Jade. I should probably point out for the geeks there. So my first edition of DDAD was RAS.
Oh, is there an updated one? Oh no.
And then the second edition is RAD. So I changed the S to a D for do. Because it's so that the pushback I got was, if you're an S, it feels a little bit like, okay, you're just supporting, you're not that important. And so I changed it to a D for a do. So RAS became RAD, because it's like, who's doing the work, and it's more than just supporting. So but a good call out for doing RAS, because that's I haven't actually heard RAS for a long time now, but it's really
okay, great. So let's say RAD, but a lot of the answer your question, a lot of the things that come up is needing to do RAS or RAD workshops with teams, because it is that, well, who's doing what? I thought this was my job, but that team's doing it over there. They're doing a piece. And again, we've grown so rapidly. We started as a North America based business, right? Our first international foray was Australia, which was great. And we've grown rapidly. And so we've been in this model of, well, is this a global team, or is the team actually North America? North America is our biggest engine right now. So needing to actually tease that out to say, well, if you say you're global and you say you're North America, who's doing what? Because I thought I was doing that. And it's incredibly helpful. And so when you go to employee engagement, things like just role clarity is so important. And to really know, like, this is where my job ends. This is the baton I pass to Shradha. She's going to take it from here. Has a direct impact, I believe, on the employee experience.
So unfortunately, we're going to have to sort of start wrapping up. So Jade, if you wanted more than one, but one tool that you think is particularly helpful for our listeners, and one trap.
Okay. So I'll start with the tool. And I really learned this over the past 4 years that I've been in this space, which is how critical the partnership with FP&A is, financial planning and analysis, with the workforce planning function. They are a critical unlock for your capability. FP&A traditionally has that strategic seat at the table. In absence of workforce planning, they need to make decisions. They need to use assumptions. They need something to inform their forecasting. So there's a gap until you've got, well, I would say not necessarily that there's a gap, but having a P&C or HR informed perspective to be able to really sit down, understand, like, take the time to understand, educate yourself. If you need to, there's so many great things on LinkedIn, YouTube. I always love, I find a lot of people like talking about themselves and what they do. So take your FP&A friends out for lunch, go for a coffee, get to know them on a human level, build those relationships, because those are the people you need to pick up the phone and call and say, hey, I need some help with this, or how do you do this analysis, and having them show you what they're doing so you understand, really, when you think of workforce planning, when you boil it down to the dollars and cents of it, it's people cost, right? And so understanding, how is people cost treated in your organization? What are the assumptions that go into that? It's just so important. And I think it will just elevate you as a practitioner in workforce planning. The thing I love about workforce planning is I think in HR, it can be difficult to quantify that financial impact you're having on the business. Typical support function, it's hard to say, oh, I'm not revenue generating. Am I cost savings? Like it's difficult, but in workforce planning, it's pretty black and white. Like you can directly see the impact that you're having to the P&L, what leverage or deleverage people cost is providing. So tool, go out and have coffee, go have lunch, make some new friends. That would be probably one of my biggest learnings.
Love that. How about a trap?
I heard this recently, I'd say in the past year or so, and it was one of those things that really stuck with me, and I've really taken it to heart, which was seek to be approximately right, not precisely wrong. And I think for myself, when we started out in, our journey, we wanted to get everything perfect. We need everything correct. And if that means we need to audit this one data point for 2 weeks, we're going to do it because it has to be perfect. And that's a trap. You can very easily fall down that. And with workforce planning, not only are we looking at, current state, looking at historicals, but we're looking forward, right? And it's a plan. Plans change, being comfortable in that space. And another great quote that I love is, perfect is the enemy of done. And I am a recovering perfectionist, type A. I apologize. I do my best, but I fall into that all the time. Like, we need to know we need to be absolutely precise down to the position level. And there are times when that is absolutely needed, depending on the reporting that you're doing, but you need to know what's that balance, and when can you say, you know what, done is better than perfect, because perfect's going to take us 6 months of analysis. So, let's go with what we've got, and we're going to continue to iterate. We're going to continue to learn. Hey, plans can be changed. Plans get updated. You update your financial forecasts all the time, like this. As you're
the one thing we know is true is, by definition, plans are going to change.
100%.
So it's the process of planning that's valuable, rather than the plan.
Absolutely.
Another one sentence that I go to is that the plans are useless, but the planning is important.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
absolutely. And it's a thinking process.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's and Jade, to your point, it's not what you know that counts, it's what you do with what you know.
Absolutely. And I would
which
say,
I guess is the other trap that people, I just want to highlight that, in summary of your conversation, but I think it's what is the action? And the number of times I sit in meetings and people just ask questions for no real point. So we say, we answer that question, so what? What are we going to do? And if the answer is unclear, to your point, Jade, then why bother? And I think that's a trap that people fall into all the time, particularly, I don't know if this is your view, senior people, because they just like asking questions, and it sometimes it just makes them feel powerful and interesting.
Well, I would say there's what's the expression? There's no stupid question, right? There's no stupid question. And being able to push back and know when I hear that is something you want, let's talk about the why. Like, let's get underneath the question. And sometimes when you take a moment to pause and dig, you might find out, that's not actually the thing. It's actually this thing that's most important to you. And that's the question I'll answer for you. I'm not going to answer this question.
Yeah. Getting to the right question, I guess, is
the
then
art.
Summarize your point.
Yep. And that's the art to the I was just saying that this is the art to the hardcore, perhaps the science of workforce planning, which is very, very tangible, very much analytics driven, but it has to be encased in this art form of asking right question, thinking about the right dot connections that you're talking about, Jade. Sorry, Rupert, over to you.
No, I was thank you, Shradha, for that. No, I was just unfortunately looking to wrap us up. We try and keep to 30 minutes, and we're close to 34. So I just want to say, Jade, thank you so much for your time and insight, and also for sharing your knowledge here, but also over the years with Shradha. And I think a lot of this is about community. So guys, it's just great to hear the story of you guys geeking out together and helping each other as well. So
oh, absolutely.
Thank you.
That is the best part that comes out of our job. So thank you so much, Jade, for who you are and for all the positivity and great work that you spread across. So thank you. And thank you, Rupert, as always, for starting this revolution so that we can all be part of it.
Thanks,
awesome.
guys.
Thank you both. I really appreciated having the opportunity to come out today. Yeah.
Unpacking Organizations, the Practitioners Podcast. Sponsored by Orgvue.